earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Jared Kushner spent the last few days visiting the officials of the European Union. Today, it was suddenly announced that the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank plan to be present at the U.S.-led Peace to Prosperity Conference to take place June 25th through the 26th in Bahrain. The economic portion of Trump's deal of the century will be unveiled during this conference. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is big news because most of the major powers of our world have been saying they will not attend the Bahrain Conference, which will actually start 20 days from right now. They're not going to attend that conference because the Palestinians are asking them to boycott it. But apparently, everything is changing because all of a sudden you have two of the biggest financial entities in the world, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, saying, oh yes, we're coming. Let me give you the story. This article appeared today. Major world financial bodies plan to be at U.S.-led peace conference. Now let's remember, President Trump, before he was ever elected, said, I'm a deal maker. I wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. And I would love to do the deal that can't be done. We're talking about a deal that's been attempted for the last 70 years, a peace deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis. But Trump said, that's the one I would like to do. And he wasn't kidding, because 1 week after he became president, after his inauguration, he appointed his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his lawyer of 20 years, Mr. Jason Greenblatt, to go out there and start working. And they have been working now for 2.5 years to put this deal together. Well, 20 days from today, the first half of this plan is going to be unveiled to the world. It'll be the economic portion of the plan. Already articles are appearing to say, don't just release the economic portion because the political portion cannot be divorced from the economic portion. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. All I'm telling you is that Trump says we're going to launch this peace deal 20 days from today. Now, why is that so critical to us who study the prophecies of the Bible? Because the Bible prophesies when there is a peace deal concluded between Israelis and Palestinians, it will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon. I'm talking about a prophecy with a timeline, with a date attached to it. You and I will be able to mark our calendars the day it's signed that we are now 7 years away, not only from the Battle of Armageddon, but the second coming, the physical second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. Now, I don't think you're hearing me because I've said this so many times, but this is not sort of dramatic. This is absolutely gigantic in all of its implications, because at the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth, the world will change once and for all, forever. But there's going to be a lot of big changes before the second coming. Once this peace agreement is signed, we enter the final 7 years. And during that final 7 years, we will see more prophetic fulfillment than we've ever seen in a similar period of time since the beginning of time. Let me take you to the article. It comes from Israel Today news source, just published today. And it begins by saying global financial bodies, including the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, plan to be present at a U.S.-led conference on the Palestinian and Middle Eastern economy this month. that U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has cast as an overture to its peace plan. The peace plan has two elements to it, an economic component and a political component. Now, this economic component is going to be so lucrative and so appealing that Trump is hoping it will be difficult to resist. The article states that the much touted economic component of the administration's peace plan, dubbed the Peace to Prosperity Workshop, will take place on June the 25th through the 26th in Bahrain. The Palestinians have said they would boycott the event, accusing Washington of pro-Israel bias and inattention to their political demands. Israel's new election, an upsurge in cross-border fighting, and the Palestinians' resentment at U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital add to the complicated backdrop. However, the IMF, which has been operating in the West Bank and Gaza since 1995, confirmed it and other institutions will be present in Bahrain's capital, Manama. Interesting. As soon as you say end time, they say, whoa, the end of the world. When's it going to be? And you can see this mask of fear. I'm not telling you the end time is coming. I'm telling you, you live in it right now. Daniel chapter number 7, verse number 4. The first beast was like a lion. We have the eagle used continually to depict the United States of America. You see it on governmental documents. We are the generation for which these that you will not miss one segment of understanding the end time, because I've had many people tell me it's changed their life forever. Many of the major prophecies of the Bible are given to us 2, 3, some of them as high as 4 or 5 times. There is not any chance it's not going to happen, because it's in your Bible, it's prophesied, and the prophecies always coming back. I'll just tell you, I am so anxious for the day that I will come to this microphone and announce to you and to the entire world that we just entered the final 7 years to Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus to this earth. Now, that time has not arrived yet. However, 20 days from today, there will be a conference held in Bahrain to reveal half of President Trump's plan to actually reach the agreement we're talking about. So don't go to sleep at the wheel now, because we are in uncharted waters. We are in unprecedented territory right now. And who knows what will happen yet this year. Let me just ask you a question for you to contemplate. What are the chances that this agreement could be totally achieved in 2019 and that you and I would enter the final 7 years this year. Now, I'm not telling you that's going to happen. I don't know that. All I can tell you is that 20 days from today, a meeting will be held in Bahrain. By the way, that's an Arab country, a Muslim country, and yet visiting there will be Israelis, people from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, from the United Arab Emirates, and now then we're getting this news that they're coming from all over the world. I'm not talking about insignificant players here. I'm talking about the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, the two financial entities that were established back in 1944 before the formation of the United Nations. And these two arms are to be the two financial arms of the entire world. They're saying, we are coming. Now, if they come, there's a pretty good chance many other major players are going to decide to fall into line. Now, the IMF has been invited to the meeting and has now accepted and expects to attend, along with other international financial institutions, a representative has informed us. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development confirmed it would have someone representing it at the meeting. Now, there's another article that's weighing into this whole Middle East peace possibility. This article states that a secret pay raise by Palestinian cabinet angers the Palestinian public. Now, that's interesting. In 2017, the Palestinian Authority secretly gave itself a series of lavish payouts and perks, highlighted by a 67% salary hike. Not a bad salary hike, by the way. The payments and perks were kept quiet for the past 2 years, but news of the cabinet decision leaked this week in a series of documents posted anonymously to social media. Now, pause right there. So, leaked this week after 2 years, I wonder who did the leaking. Could it be that enemies of Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, who has so resisted this peace plan that most of the Arab countries in the area are urging the Palestinians to accept, and yet Mahmoud Abbas said, I don't even want to see it. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it. I'm rejecting it. Now, all of a sudden, something that he has done that is going to be very injurious to his reputation, it suddenly is anonymously leaked to the international, to the social media. This comes from Israel Today just yesterday. The Palestinian labor market in the West Bank was limping along in 2017 with unemployment stubbornly high and economic growth slowing. But that didn't stop the Palestinian Authority cabinet from secretly giving itself a series of lavish payouts and perks, highlighted by a 67% salary hike. The payments and the perks were kept quiet for the past 2 years, but news of the cabinet decision leaked this week in a series of documents posted anonymously to social media. The revelations have rocked the West Bank, where the cash-strapped government has been forced to slash the salaries of its employees because of a financial crisis. Coming during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, a time of high expenses for struggling families, the report renewed outrage among Palestinians who have long seen their leadership as out of touch and rife with corruption. Now, pause a moment. Why could this be important? Well, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, who is resisting Trump's peace plan, says, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to read it. Yet, he is now 83 years of age. He was elected to a 4-year term as president of the Palestinians, but now that he's been in office 12 years. So you're elected 4 years, you don't bother to have another election for 12 years. So some people have been rumoring that Mahmoud Abbas is out of touch with the reality and that he must go. Could this thing he's done, this secret action he took, could this trigger his fall or at least pressure him to become more pliable and to consider the peace plan that President Trump has put together? Let's continue on with the article. The cabinet members behaved as if the government is their private shop and they can take as much as they want without being held accountable, said political commentator Ehab Jariri. According to one leaked document, the monthly salaries for cabinet ministers spiked from $3,000 to $5,000, while the prime minister's salary was raised to $6,000. The raises were kept a secret from the public and approved by Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, two senior officials said, overriding a 2004 law that fixed ministers' salaries. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the issue with the media. The pay raise was made retroactive to 2014. Now, pause just a moment. So the pay raise was retroactive to 2014, but they didn't get it until 2017. Suddenly, they're going to collect 3 years of additional pay. Most of them are increasing by like $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year times 3. So they're going to get this windfall of around $75,000, while most of the West Bank is suffering horribly. Many of them have had their salaries reduced by half during this time. Okay, so the pay raise was made retroactive to 2014 when the cabinet took office, giving the ministers an extra bonus of tens of thousands of dollars, the officials said. The benefits did not end there. Ministers who live outside Ramallah, the seat of the Palestinian Authority, received $10,000 a year to rent a house there, another document showed. Officials who already owned Ramallah homes also reaped the lucrative bonus. And in an extra boost, the government inflated the exchange rate, giving them a roughly 17% premium when converting the salaries to Israeli shekels. Cabinet members already enjoy government compensation for personal drivers and international travel expenses. The documents were viewed by the Associated Press and authenticated by the Palestinian officials. After years in office, Abbas has seen his popularity plummet. People are disillusioned by his failure to deliver an independent state, his loss of the Gaza Strip to rival Hamas, and general economic malaise. Unemployment in the West Bank is near 20%, and a typical salary for those who do work, such as civil servants, is roughly $700 to $1,000 a month. Now, think about that. We're talking about these cabinet members being raised up to $5,000 a month, and yet most people in their particular regime is making from $700 a month to $1,000 a month, and unemployment is at 20%. Now, these leaks coincide with a report by Amman finding that the PA has improperly filled senior government jobs without advertising them, appointed officials relatives to senior posts, and refused to disclose budgets of the presidential office and security forces. In other words, corruption, corruption, corruption. All of this is buzzing on social media in the Palestinian Authority and in the Arab world today. The Palestinian Authority lost the trust of people a long time ago because of its unlawful practices, said analyst Jihad Harb. After the latest leaks, he added, the government looks very vulnerable and shaken. Israel will no longer tolerate Arab riots on the Temple Mount. Now, this is our next article. Okay, let's pause there just a moment. So, what's going to happen? I mean, I've said from the beginning that if Mahmoud Abbas continues to put his heels in the concrete and refuses to cooperate, most of the other Arab nations roundabout are sick of supporting the Palestinians financially. The Palestinians have been on international welfare now for 70 long years. The other nations are sick of it. And to see this kind of behavior, well, it is really unacceptable to the different powers that now are moving to normalize relations with the nation of Israel. Now let's talk about this next article, because in this next article, we are informed that Israel is no longer going to tolerate Arab riots on the Temple Mount. Over the years, if you've been following this closely, every time something happened on the Temple Mount that the Arabs did not like, they would riot. And the Israeli government was so afraid that they would then close the Temple Mount to Israelis, even though the Israelis did not riot. And of course, they were rewarding those Muslims who did riot. Well, now then, the announcement has been made. This is out of Israel's national news a couple of days ago. Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein, who's a member of the Likud party, that's Netanyahu's party, condemned Arab rioters on the Temple Mount, calling on the Israeli government to put an end to Arab efforts to intimidate Jews attempting to visit the Jerusalem holy site. He's saying, look, we're done with this. You've been intimidating us when we want to go up there and visit the holiest place in the world to us as Jews. And he is appealing to the government. It's time for this to stop once and for all. Now, let me say this. It has been getting less and less and less and less as time is going along, and Jewish visitation on the Temple Mount has been becoming more and more and more. I mean, we saw it go from almost nothing around 2000 to several hundred per year into 2005, 2010, and now it has ballooned until during 2017, there were 16,000 Jews that visited the Temple Mount in 1 year. And then 2018, the first 6 months, 18,000 Jews in the first 6 months. So there is a tremendous escalation right now, and that's making the Muslim very, very nervous, because they know that the Jews want to build their temple on the Temple Mount. Consequently, that's probably one of the things that triggered these riots on Sunday. Let's go on with the article. This generation will no longer tolerate a situation in which on the Temple Mount, especially the Temple Mount, Muslim rioters can do what they please, and Jews who simply want to visit are threatened. Edelstein said at a Knesset meeting marking Jerusalem Day. Now, Jerusalem Day was also the end of the month of Ramadan. So the Muslims said, you can't come here. This is the end of our month of Ramadan. But the Jews said, wait a minute. This is one of our very holiest days, because Jerusalem was reunited on this day 50 51 years ago, actually, 52 years ago. And therefore, we want to come and we want to be on our Temple Mount where God said he would place his name. So this was on Jerusalem Day, the anniversary of the unification of the capital of Jerusalem. This is an illogical, immoral, undemocratic, and un-Jewish situation. This situation must change. On Sunday, the 52nd anniversary of the unification of Jerusalem under Israeli control, hundreds of Arab rioters clashed with Israeli police, hurling rocks, shoes, and chairs at Israeli security personnel on the Temple Mount. Riot police used crowd dispersal measures to break up the riots, including tear gas. Earlier on Sunday, the Temple Mount headquarters reported that Sunday morning, Jerusalem Day, a record after 1,160 Jews ascended the Temple Mount. Did you hear it? 1,160 Jews in one day on Jerusalem Day visited the Temple Mount. The article goes on to say, today we made history, a day when terror will not defeat Israeli sovereignty. Today we can say with certainty the Temple Mount is run only according to the determination of the authorities of the state of Israel. The Temple Mount is in our hands, the authorities said in a statement. Wow. Now that's what's going on in Israel today. Remember, the Bible prophesies a temple is soon to be built on the Temple Mount. These events are merely precursors of the prophecies soon to be fulfilled. Here we have the Israelis announcing the Temple Mount is in our hands. The Israel police had initially announced that the Temple Mount would be closed to Jews on Jerusalem Day, citing security reasons, but later reversed the decision, opening the holy site to Jewish visitors. While the Temple Mount is under Israeli sovereign control since 1967, it is administered by the Jordanian-based Waqf, an Islamic trust which strictly limits non-Muslim visitation on the Mount and bans prayer by non-Muslims. No Christians can pray there, no Jews can pray there. This article appeared just yesterday. China encourages social credit incentives. China's top economic planner has issued guidelines over introducing incentives to reward role models in the evolving social credit system. The new guidelines by National Development and Reform Commission have specified the standards by which to evaluate if a person should be considered a role model in regards to credit worthiness. Now let's pause just a moment. This system that we're reading to you about right now is very similar to what the Bible says the mark of the beast will look like, because this system tracks everything. There are millions and millions of cameras all over China, and they are tracking their citizens everywhere. And whatever they do, if they jaywalk or if they sit in a handicapped seat on a train when they're not handicapped, it automatically deducts this from their credit score. And they suddenly will find themselves having difficulty in dealings with the government, in buying airline tickets, in getting a hold of passports and things of that nature. Matter of fact, we're going to enumerate some of those things. Here's some of them. They include 15 preferential policies to be enjoyed by those who make the role model list. Outstanding individuals in the system can freely acquire personal credit reports a number of times in a year and freely search information in the National Credit Information online platform according to the regulation. They will also enjoy fast-tracked services when applying for administrative approval, qualification reviews, credit cards or personal loans, patents or copyright registration, and quick refunds from financial institutions or platform companies. Now you can see how broad this is. If the person conducts themselves exactly like the state wants them to in China, they're going to be positively rewarded. But if they violate these guidelines, then they're going to be penalized. Now, the scripture talks about the mark of the beast in Revelation chapter 13, and it even reaches the point that if people do not live in favor with the state, they will be penalized even to the point of being unable to buy or sell. This certainly is a huge leap down that road. Let's go on. The guideline also states role models will gain priority in having access to public elderly care services and applying for civil service positions. Cities are also encouraged to introduce coordinated incentives to those outstanding individuals in Hukou household registration permit, education, housing, employment, Medicare, and administrative approval offered by local government. China started to build a social credit system in 2014, so this has been going for 5 years. And an open national credit information online platform is already in place where reliable people and enterprises are honored, while poor credit performers like defaulting debtors and taxpayers are blacklisted. And you can imagine what they do with people that belong to underground churches and things of that nature. The system is supported with punishment measures like restrictions on enjoying certain services. Well, the story goes on and on and on. This article comes from Australia. Australian government pays Al Gore $320,000 to conduct a 3-day climate training. And at the same time, can you believe it, a rare snowfall hits? Aussie Alan Jones says taxpayers will fork out more than $320,000 for the Climate Week conference, where former U.S. Vice President Al Gore will communicate the urgency of the climate crisis. It is not believable, says Alan Jones, that the Queensland government can be so awash with money as to bring this hypocrite, now I'm quoting from him, these are not my words, this hypocrite, Al Gore, to Australia for a conference. When so many important instruments of government are underfunded, when farmers can't feed their cattle in Queensland, and $320,000 goes to waste on this shonk. Now, I don't know what that word shonk means. I hope it's not a vulgar word, but whatever it means, that was the words used in this article. Joe Nova, fittingly, the Gore effect strikes again. Snow fell in Queensland. The last time it fell was 2015. But here we are. I mean, this conference is going on right now as I speak to you. Here we are, 4 years later, they haven't had a snowfall since, and suddenly here they are in June, and the bottom drops out of the temperature, and it's snowing, while Al Gore comes there to trumpet global warming. We've got to do something because the whole world is going to collapse if we don't. Let's go ahead. Al Gore is here in Australia to train 1,000 useful idiots, again, the words of the author, on unscience, Neolithic reasoning, and witchcraft. The man with no climate science expertise and huge vested interest is being paid by taxpayers to train people to chant consensus, 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 and pretend that wind and solar can stop storms and hold back the tide. These obedient fools help to destroy any conversation about science by reciting anti-science bumper stickers like "the science is settled, gravity is real." Okay, let's pause there just a moment. As you know, global warming is taking a huge role in our elections here in America, especially on the Democratic side. I mean, they are pounding away saying that we've got 12 years to rectify our course or the world is going to end up being rendered uninhabitable. And they say it over and over again. Many of you may even believe it. If you do, I want to ask you, why do you believe it? Do you have one piece of evidence that global warming is true? Now, I have some absolute evidence that it is not true. Let me give you one simple one. 1,000 years ago, in Greenland, there were farms being farmed that today are under 12 feet of ice, which means it was much warmer in Greenland 1,000 years ago than it is today. They had no SUVs, they had no jet airplanes. Furthermore, in Iceland, there were great wineries, and that's where the name Vinland came from. So consequently, you couldn't raise grapes there to save your neck. The fact is, global warming is the biggest hoax being perpetrated upon the American people outside of Russia. I mean, we have a media today that is trying their best to brainwash the American people to believe outright lies. For example, the Vikings sailed through the northern straits 1,000 years ago. You can't do it today. It's all frozen solid. But yet they did 1,000 years ago. And yet they're trying to say to us that global warming is going to absolutely render our planet useless. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not a word of truth to it. You say, why are they doing this then? Because they want you to agree to international laws that will control, supposedly, climate change. They want you to control global carbon emissions and other things, which will do absolutely zero good. Fortunately, we've got a president with some common sense, and he quickly withdrew us from the Paris Climate Accord because we were going to spend trillions of dollars between now and 2050, and it was going to make literally no difference. Now, all of you out there that have embraced this myth of global warming, I am challenging you, educate yourself. Quit taking this propaganda from all of these young politicians that are out there. I mean, I saw a video of a teacher that was training her grade school children to go around and tell people, we've got to change everything. The world is going to end in 12 years. It's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. I mean, Al Gore said something like this many years ago. By 2018, we were going to be under 32 feet of water. Well, none of that happened. None of it's true. It's all propaganda. Now, I know that the politicians can't say this because they have so brainwashed the American people, but I'm not running for anything. I can say it. It is a hoax. Global warming is a hoax. It's propaganda. It's all designed to get us to consent to international law that will control what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you live in, and everything else about your life. And they're going to make sure these laws are international because air doesn't stop the border, water doesn't stop the border. All these laws are international. Now, before you reject what I'm telling you today, educate yourself. Don't buy into the fake news. Don't buy into the propaganda. And that's all it is. I mean, I looked up articles back in 1975 that were warning us about a coming ice age in Time magazine. Now they're warning us about global warming. They can't make up their minds because they don't have a clue. So don't fall for the propaganda. All right. Let me give you a little bit more of this. Well, sounds like I'm up against a break. Nevertheless, I just wanted you to know that Al Gore is being paid $320,000 to put on a 3-day conference. Not bad pay for a 3-day conference. No wonder he's pushing this global warming myth.